Bow. What is up, everyone? How's it going? Y'all miss me? It's been 5 days since we've done one of these streams, and we will try to not get demonetized. We, of course, I mean myself. Pretty sure it was that rant on Mr. Dinklage that caused the demonetization of the last live stream, but I'll try to refrain from using such language in this one. We're going to be starting here shortly. We're going to be discussing everyone's favorite house, House Targaryen, and their dragons. A few of, the Targaryens that we'll be discussing will, of course, play a role in House of the Dragon. Obviously, I think once I start taking questions, that'll probably lead most of this stream into House of the Dragon discussion. But I do want to discuss, just as a quick rundown, I want to talk about Maegor a little bit. How dark the show is going to be, some Targaryen patterns that I've noticed, basically male versus female. I want to talk about Jaehaerys, and then after that, I'm going to take questions. But right now, please do me a massive favor, slap a like on this video. Shout out to every single person in the chat. Once I actually start the stream, I'll do an official shout out to everybody that's watching. But thank you for joining me on such short notice. Eventually, these live streams will be planned. I think I'm going to do one live stream regarding House of the Dragon, and one live stream regarding King Killer. I get once a week each, twice a week total, but then also videos sprinkled in between. Once you really delve into the world, it's kind of hard to pick one thing to make a video on, because it's like, videos just become long. So these live streams are easier for me to get a bunch of information out, and it's more free flowing. It's more fun. But yeah, enough talking. I'll let you all converse amongst yourself in the chat. We're going to be starting this live stream very shortly here. Very shortly. I'm going to grab my coffee. Oh, wait, my coffee's already here. I need to grab this. What the fuck? Alright. This is as good as time, is it? Alright. We'll do this. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Sir Hunt's Reviews. My name's Mark, and in this live stream, we're going to be discussing Targaryens because they're literally the greatest. If you don't believe me, well, then you're an idiot. Shout out to every single person in the chat. Let's see. We got, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Chris Smalls, Dawn Marie, Divine Sharika, Jalen H, Lexi Lambert, Sansi, Sarita Pearson, Sir Hunter, that's me. Ray Wilkins, The Dragon Knight, Winterfell 26. I think that's everybody who's typing. Chicken Legs and Hari Krishna. Oh yeah, and also Doritoto. What up, everybody who's watching right now? Alright, so I'm going to jump in the chat in a second and take questions. It makes it harder for me to focus if I do that right away. So I'll get the information out that I wanted to get through, and then gonna jump into the chat. Need to check to make sure. Is the mic good? Is the audio good? Is the video good? Can you guys see me, or do I look like a big block? I guess I could check myself. Sounds good. Looks okay. All right. Whoa. It's funny how much of a delay there is. All right. Cool. All right, so first things first. We're going to talk about Maegor the Cruel. Maegor, let's see if I can't do this for you guys. Just to have a little bit, because there's literally no reason why I shouldn't do this anyway. This is my favorite depiction of Maegor, so that's the image we'll use. Obviously, that's massive and covers my whole fucking face. All right, there we go. Oh, that's too small. Yeah, this works. Okay, so we're talking about Maegor. This is my favorite image of Maegor. George does these Targaryen Thursdays on his Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow him at... What the fuck is his Twitter username? I don't know, but make sure you follow me as well. I'm sure you can find George R. Martin's Twitter. But follow me as well at Sir_Hunts. I've basically just been tweeting my thoughts as I work my way through all of the A Song of Ice and Fire material. Some of them are pretty funny, I think. For instance, Maegor the Cruel, ruled for 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days. For those of you who are unaware, that's the number of the beast. Maegor the Cruel is the devil. Another thing I thought was interesting was when Maegor was a little kid in the stables, he got kicked by a horse, whereas most people would be like, oh, fuck, be stunned a little bit. Maegor stabbed the horse to death. And obviously, there's keepers and stable boys that take care of the horses, and once one of them heard the horse crying out, he came over to try to help it. Maegor then stabbed him to death. Half of the boy's face was gone. Maegor had 6 wives. I don't need to name all of them, but it's funny because he also ruled for 6 years, 6 days, and 6 months or whatever, right? He wasn't stabbed 6 times, but he was stabbed 3 times. Obviously he died on the Iron Throne. Some people think that he was pushed down. Some people think that he committed suicide. More than likely, he probably fell asleep on the Iron Throne. That shit was fucking sick vicious, right? So even Viserys, the king in House of the Dragon, cuts himself a few times on the chair. It's dangerous. It's probably why it looks the way it does in the TV show. Maybe that's the excuse they're going to use for House of the Dragon. It's like after, obviously, Maegor, fuck him, but, Viserys cuts himself on the throne. Maybe they decide to make it a little bit smaller. Maybe we find out by the end of House of the Dragon, it's going to look the exact same as it did in Season 1 of Game of Thrones. Maybe. I will say that it's interesting that one of Maegor's wives ends up being one of the people, I think, who the fuck is it? I have it written down right here. Eleanor Costain. So obviously Maegor is dead. The next king, Maegor was the 3rd king to ever sit the Iron Throne of Westeros in the Targaryen standards, right? So before the Targaryens came over, we obviously know that Westeros was several warring kingdoms. For the most part, the entirety of Westeros, after the First Men came over, after the Andals came over and, pushed the First Men, the religion, the Children of the Forest, the Giants, everything north of the fucking wall, and the Andals were chilling. All of those little minor kingdoms, like hundreds of them, would fucking feud with each other. Obviously, Aegon comes over. He's like, look, you cunts. Settle down, you cunts. Stop warring with each other. Chill out. And obviously, most of the kingdoms did. Dorne wasn't brought in until later. But the fact... What the fuck was I getting at? Oh, yeah. Maegor being the 3rd king to sit the Iron Throne. Anyway, one of his black wives, black brides... Eleanor Costain ends up going out, Jaehaerys is the 4th king to sit the Iron Throne after Maegor. He marries his sister, Maegor having 6 wives, and then Aenys, his son, marrying his sister as well, Rhaenyra. Okay, so let me start at the beginning. Aegon rules for a bit. Aegon the Conqueror rules for a bit, then dies of a stroke on Dragonstone. His older son and heir, Aenys, he's, a lot of people thought that he might not actually be Aegon's son because he's much more into singing and being a poet, and he reminds me a lot of Kvothe from the Kingkiller Chronicle. Not a lot, but a little bit. He likes songs, he likes artistry, he's a musician, right? He likes singing. Because of this, a lot of the small folk, and the fact that his mother would have, artists and shit come into her room at all hours of the night, right? So a lot of people thought that Aenys was not Aegon's son. So Aegon, after he died, he obviously, it's like, once mommy and daddy are gone, the kids are going to play. That's basically what happened, right? With the Sons of the Dragon. So Aenys is a dipshit. He's Jaehaerys' father. There's a few other people, obviously Aegon. That he would technically be Aegon the Second, but he's Aegon the Uncrowned. And obviously in House of the Dragon, we have Aegon the Second. There's so many of these other Targaryen names that are used, but unless they're actually crowned, they aren't one or two or three. They just have that name. So it actually makes it harder to like just reiterate without looking at notes and shit. But basically, Maegor is deposed. Jaehaerys becomes king, and he knows that Maegor had 6 wives. Like Aegon, because he had 3 dragons, right? And he united Westeros. They kind of just ignored the fact that he married his sisters, right? Incest is blasphemous. So as soon as he dies, that's one of the first things they confront his children about. So eventually, Maegor, a lot of his problems during his reign, he's mostly known for battling the faith, right? Like the warrior sons. One of the first things he does is have a trial by 7 with Daemon Morgan. It's hard to fucking really spit out here, but basically, after Jaehaerys is crowned, he handles things professionally. He's literally one of the best kings for a reason, right? So he grew up watching Maegor. He grew up knowing what it takes to be a good king. He saw his father. He knew his father was like his father's weakness was one of the things that was his biggest downfall. He knew that Maegor's strength was one of his like good qualities, right? So Jaehaerys is sort of like a combination of both of those. He's sort of the second coming of Aegon, but actually a little bit better than Aegon. So eventually he marries his wife. He's got a regency. His mother and Rhaegar Baratheon are ruling the 7 kingdoms. He ends up marrying Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys ends up marrying Alicent, right? If you want to say it how Simon Vance does. They do it in secret. Then obviously once his mother finds out, once Rhaegar Baratheon finds out, they come to Dragonstone. There's a bit of a standoff, which happens so many times. It's like there's a pattern. It's like there's an heir that's too young. He has a regency. The regency doesn't necessarily want to give up power. There's a problem, right? That's a recurring pattern in Targaryens. And then also being an older female heir and then a younger male heir. That's a recurring pattern and theme in Targaryens. But yeah, with Jaehaerys, like, you know, after marrying Alicent in secret, he waits until like he trains every day. He becomes a strong, badass motherfucker. And then when he actually becomes king, he makes Alicent wait in Dragonstone for like 6 months until he's established himself. He wipes out positions of power in King's Landing that didn't necessarily even need to. He literally restructures the entire kingdom. Then brings Alicent over from Dragonstone. It's funny, he sends for her, and then within 2 hours or some shit, she leaves, right? When they already had a wedding, so when she gets there, they have like a smaller wedding. Rhaegar and his mother are there to watch it. He doesn't want to waste money on another golden wedding of his mother, like that his mother and Rhaegar had before, right? There was like 5,000 people there, so this was a smaller wedding. It was only 1,000. And since he knew he was going to be tested, he decided to make a group of people go out and preach and explain that Targaryens aren't the same as everyone else. Targaryens, in their old country, right, in Valyria, their founding religion made it okay for them to have incestuous relationships. The blood of the dragon must be strong. So Jaehaerys is like, look, I'm going to send out these prophets, basically these preachers, 4 of them women, I think 3 of them men, whatever the fuck, doesn't matter. One of them is the Eleanor Costain, one of Maegor's Black Brides. That was a whole point of me getting to explaining why I thought it was interesting. I had to explain all that shit, but yeah, so basically she's one of the ones who goes out there and they're like, look, these Targaryens they're alien, and aliens get to do alien things. And it's funny, it's mentioned one of the people that Jaehaerys sends out is crippled, so he has to have what's called a litter carry him around, and he ends up getting challenged at one of the towns that he visits, preaching to the small folk that, you know, it's okay for Jaehaerys to fuck his sister. He ends up getting challenged by a hedge knight who was formerly a warrior son or whatever, and he's like, so you're telling me that it's okay for me to fuck my sister? And then the guy's like, go to Dragonstone, claim a dragon, and I will personally wed you myself. But that obviously helps the realm accept Jaehaerys and Alicent's marriage, right? Brother and sister marrying, it's bad. They're abomination. That just happened with Maegor the Cruel, and then before they took down Maegor, Aegon, because he married his sister, right? So technically Aegon too, but not really, because he's Aegon the Uncrowned. So I just thought that was interesting to note those parallels, but that actually probably is used down the line to be like, well, these Targaryen people need to get the fuck out of here. We need to kill the dragons. They are not of this land, right? They're foreign. They're abomination. Get the fuck out. So I thought it was interesting. It helped Jaehaerys in his reign for the Seven Kingdoms to accept his marriage, but then it ultimately kind of backfires when separating, what was the other thing I want to talk about? Let me pull up the chat a little bit and see if there's like a problem going on with the video feed or anything. All right, cool. Well, I kind of made my way through all of that. Okay, well, the Targaryen patterns, right? So with House of the Dragon, the biggest problem is that... Whoa, I didn't mean to leave that up. Shit. The biggest problem, so Jaehaerys, his grandfather is Aegon. Viserys' grandfather is Jaehaerys. So that's how we can sort of relate it to this show, right? I got baby food on my shoulder. It's embarrassing. Please, thank you. All right. The fuck was I just talking about? Oh yeah, so the king in power when House of the Dragon starts. So he's that close to Aegon the Conqueror. Might be 100 in like some odd years, 110 years, 105 years, whenever they start this, 100 years before Aegon the Conqueror. So this is after Jaehaerys' reign, obviously, right? So one of the biggest things I always say is that one of the reasons why Viserys is such a weak shit king is because Jaehaerys reigned for so long and did so many good things that Viserys was handed the reins of power to a kingdom that was for the most part content, right? So usually after every king... after every Targaryen king, there's a bit of a turmoil. The realm is thrown up. There's always a question of succession. It happens every single fucking time. Very rarely does a Targaryen king die and then it just go to his son, his eldest son. Very rarely does that happen. Usually they're so incestuous, they don't have an heir, or the heir dies before the king does, and then there's a question of succession. This happens so fucking often. It's ridiculous, right? So... that happens, obviously, at the start of the show. That's what causes the Dance of the Dragons. So coming into it, I'm kind of just all over the place. I really just need to jump into the chat and answer questions. But coming into this, that's why Viserys doesn't, realize that even though he thinks he's figured out the succession, the Seven Kingdoms aren't down for that, right? It's a patriarchal society. They think 90% of the time when they see a strong woman, they're like, oh, the bitch is a witch. She's using sorcery. She's bathing in the blood of newborns. Kill her, dumb cunt. Force her out of the kingdom. That's literally what they do anytime they meet a powerful woman. It's actually really funny because that's what they did in actual history, right? For the most part. She's got to be meeting with the devil. She's got to be sucking the devil's ding dong in order for her to have this much power. But basically, that's what happens, right? So Viserys, two things working against him. One is that it was too good when he came into power. And then two is that because it was too good, he didn't learn his history. That's one of the things that Jaehaerys did, for his regency, after marrying Alicent and being over in Dragonstone, he didn't just, tell his... Seven Kings guard to beat him up, right? So that's how he got tough. He's like, yo, they actually made a game of it. They're like, how many times can I kill the king? Cockpate or whatever the fuck was the one who did it, 14 times in a day. So they're sparring and they're like, let's see how many times we can kill the king. Anyway, that obviously made Jaehaerys a really good fucking warrior, right? So Viserys didn't have to do that because Jaehaerys was such a good king. He didn't have to be a good warrior. He didn't have to learn his history. So I guess 3 things really fucked him up. But if he had learned his history, he would have seen that there were 3 other times in the short history of the Targaryen reign of the 7 kingdoms that there had been a question of succession about a female heir older than the male heir, or a male heir that is being chosen over the older. Like, this has happened so many times, you fucking idiot. And if Viserys had learned about that, if Jaehaerys wasn't such a good king, if it had been normal history, maybe the Dance of the Dragons wouldn't have happened. Maybe there would have been normal squabbles between the Targaryens, where one who thinks they have a better claim than the other one would fight factions, declare themselves for one another, but ultimately maybe it wouldn't have wiped out all of the dragons, right? So Jaehaerys had set up the kingdom so good that everyone was willing to throw down. Like, it was said at first that the Dance of the Dragons was a war of ravens. They tried to have marriages, and they tried to do everything they could without using the dragons. But I'm just saying, like, if Viserys was a better king, none of this would have happened. If he learned his history better, none of this would have happened. Let me see, was there anything else I wanted to mention? I think that's pretty good. How long was that? 22-minute rant. That's good. That's about a video, right? I was all over the place, but let's take some questions. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to throw the chat up on the window. Oh, there we go. Perfect. See if I can make that a little bit bigger. Cool. All right, so let's start up at the beginning. Dragon Knight. Sir Hunts, what's up, bro? Nothing much. What's up with you, man? Long night, Zeldrizas Buzdari. Ixos. Daor? Audio has a tiny bit of feedback. That's probably just because I have the thing turned up so loud. But it also could be your phone. Are you watching your phone? Could it maybe be your speakers? Either way, it doesn't matter if it's a tiny bit. Good to see you too, Luckman Daniels. His Twitter's George R. Martin speaking. Yes, it is. Shout out Denis Sorson. What's up, buddy? Uncle Dave Zilla. What up, bruh? Georgie Jedi, Richard Thomas, Lady Black, Vladimir Putin. We got the Russian president in our fucking chat. Lord Corliss, Delroy, LML, Luckman Daniels. I think both Joffrey, Daeron, and Helena will not be in the show. I think they cut them. They better not. Helena is Aegon's wife, so they definitely couldn't cut her. Divine Sarika says, Maegor was certainly killed by his foes. He literally hated everyone but himself. Now let's be fair. Let's do a little bit of like dissection of who Maegor was, right? So his father is the king of everything. The conqueror, he was known, right? Aenys was chosen above him because he was older. Maegor, to be honest, embodied so much more of the dragon. He was way more like Aegon in the beginning. He had battle prowess. No, he didn't ride a dragon, but that was because he knew that there was only one dragon for him, and that was Balerion the Black Dread, right? He bided his time. He waited. I don't know what the fuck it's like. My dad doesn't have any money. My mom doesn't have any money. But if they did, right, and my older sister was ahead of me in the inheritance line, maybe we would beef more than what we already do. I don't really know what the fuck that's like. But you got to realize that during this time frame, literally every single person PTSD. Every single person has killed someone by the age of like 3, right? Every single person has seen someone murdered in front of their eyes. They've seen crazy shit. These are not normal people. These are all, like, if you took the most shell-shocked people from World War II, anyone in Westeros would be twice as fucked up as that, right? So his whole life, he's like, my brother's fucking singing songs And he's like, fuck, he didn't even want to learn how to swing a sword. This motherfucker, what? And then, on top of that, his mother, Rhaenyra, he's got Blackfire, and then after, Aegon dies, Aenys gives him Blackfire, right? So that to him tells him, look, I'm more of a warrior than you are. I have the Conqueror's sword and the Conqueror's dragon. And he kept Dark Sister in his chambers. I don't know. I think Maegor is a bit misunderstood. Obviously, he's got qualities of a young Joffrey. Obviously, he may have been one of the worst kings to ever rule Westeros. But to be honest, there's several other people that do similar things to Maegor. The difference is Maegor does those things and then more. For instance, aside from killing a horse when he was younger, he also, if I'm not mistaken, anyone that would talk out against him, like one guy, he literally got up and slit his throat. He literally cut one of his wives who he accused of having, well, it wasn't an accusation. Basically, Tiana of the Tower gave him a list of people of who one of his wives was fucking and how there was, like, so many people coming in that would, like, just go and, like, have sex with her, like, bust nuts in her pussy. And he got pissed off at that. So he ended up, like, having her tortured. Then he cut her up into 7 pieces and put her along the 7 gates in King's Landing until she rotted. Right? That's fucked up. But it's also like, why are you having dudes run the train on you in the castle? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying. But, like, what the fuck, man? There's 2 sides to every coin. And people saying the Targaryen madness for every other one. To be completely honest, the Targaryens are no different than the other lords of Westeros. They just have dragons. And for a large chunk of their history, they don't have dragons. So it's like, what the fuck? The Targaryens are just the most famous. They have the most history written about them. But if you hear from any other one of the other lords, especially before the Targaryens came over, they were just as bad, if not worse. They just didn't have dragons. They had to fight their wars with poison and all different treachery, betrayal, backstabbing. Targaryens, at least for the most part, 40% of them tried to be like, you see my dragon? That's a warning. If you don't do what we say, that dragon's gonna fuck your ass up. Otherwise, fall in line, right? Like, realize I'm gonna fuck my sister. Realize I'm gonna have maybe 2 wives if I can't get an heir. But as long as you don't piss me off, I won't have to feed you to my dragon. I just think the Targaryens are misunderstood. I think that most of the other houses in Westeros, aside from maybe the Starks, maybe a few of the other houses in the north, are bastards. The Riverlands are constantly at war. 2/3 of the battles that have ever been fought in Westeros have been fought in the Riverlands, in the Crownlands. Like, the Targaryens might be fucked up and might cause war and fire and blood and bloodshed, but Westeros already fucking had that before they even came over. Let's be real. 1,000 small bickering kingdoms. Now I'm cold since I took off my jacket. Put it back on. Can't remember why I took it off to begin with. Was it because I got hot? I love your view about Maegor. Good analysis. Thank you. I think it's kind of like his dad fucked him by fucking his sister Visenya and having a son. It's like he was impotent. He was it's like, to be honest, he might not have been impotent. Tiana the Tower is the bitch who poisoned all of his brides. It's brides that did get pregnant. He would have had healthy babies, but this bitch is putting some crazy fucking poison in the goddamn water, and the fucking pregnant bitches are having dragon babies. I don't know what the fuck's going on. It's crazy. Like, you could say that, yeah, the Targaryens would have had mal-twisted, deformed children, or whatever the fuck, but, I mean, let's be real. Like, they also had a lot of other blood. If Maegor was considered mad, then so is every other Targaryen that has used a dragon to get his way. Very misunderstood indeed. Yes, Jaehaerys is a good example of that. Were any of Dany's dragons female? It's not specifically stated. None of them have left a clutch of eggs, and that's the one thing that really determines whether a dragon is male or female. It's believed they could change their sex to whatever is needed. But Dany's dragons have not left a clutch of eggs, so all of them are male. Also, she named them after males. Rhaegar, obviously. I think Ryan will not cut any of the children. Yes. I agree with that. I don't think Ryan Condal will cut any of the children. Luckman Daniel said, we needed Jaehaerys and Alicent prequel. Greatest Targaryen king ever. I don't know if I'd say ever. Right? Because he kind of fucked over the realm in the end. A little bit. I don't know. I think he actually ruled a little bit too long. I think he was too much of a good thing. What moment are you looking forward to the most? I don't know. I think this sounds fucked up, right? But I think after Aegon's dragon is damaged, there's a moment where he basically leaves and his dragon can't fly. So he leaves a group of dudes to guard it while it tries to heal, and then eventually does take the sky again. But that scene is the most, like, in my opinion, one of the most gut-wrenching moments. Probably won't happen until, like, maybe season 3 or so. Oh, I took it off because I had shit on my shoulder. That's why. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. Probably a moment like that. Just because it's like, people always say, we got to make sure we see these dragons' personalities on screen. But, like, to be honest, they don't really have a personality. They reflect the mood of their dragon. That's their personality, right? So Caraxes was known to be this badass motherfucker, and even though Vhagar was twice his fucking size, he still took him down in combat. There was no sword fight. It was literally just dragons. The dragons are fucking munching on each other. Daemon noted to not, like, before the battle began, he didn't slip the 3 chains on himself, locking him into his saddle. He knew what the fuck was going to happen. Aemon mentioned he did. And obviously when he sees the dragons are fucking attacking each other, Daemon is willing to die. So he obviously jumps off, grabs Stark's sister, and then, like, it's mentioned that Aemon looks up in terror and he's like, oh no, Nunca! Just knife through the eye. Like, that's a moment that I'm obviously looking forward to, but I feel like it's kind of played out. But the dragon personality, that's what I was talking about. So, like, other than that, there's not really, like, I mean, cannibal, I guess, because he eats other dragons. That's kind of a personality. He's like, he just doesn't give a fuck. 0 fucks given. I don't know. This is interesting. The Citadel is the bacteria that exposes itself whenever they see a rain they don't like. They take their time. The high towers are and the Citadel are one. So you think that Alicent may have helped to poison Jaehaerys? Alicent, the queen, Viserys' wife, in the beginning of House of the Dragon, she spent time with Jaehaerys in his last days. So much so that he mistaked her for one of his daughters that had ran the fuck away. Sarah, I think. That's interesting. I mean, the High Towers are linked to Old Town. The Old Town is a citadel. High Towers are one of the most powerful houses in Westeros. It's possible. It's going to be interesting to see because, to be honest, there's not, like, at other times, it's made very clear throughout the story that there's probably some behind-the-scenes shit going on with, like, the downfall of the dragons. For House of the Dragon, it's literally, the way it's listed out in, for the most part, in Fire and Blood is, like, names and dates. And you just hear battle after battle, death after death, treachery after treachery, backstab after backstab. But for the most part, the magical elements, like the influence from the Faceless Men or the Maesters, right? It's not exactly clear. Like, there's a little bit, but it's more so, like, for instance, in A Dance of Dragons, there's a goddamn Faceless Men in the fucking Citadel right now, studying, looking for something, right? That's clearly, there's no reason for him to be there. What the fuck is he there for? Is he looking for dragon eggs? He's looking for a way to take it down Daenerys' dragons that are coming across sea? Like, we need to... There's like, mystery there. With this, I don't know. It's like, it's mostly just Targaryens being cunts to each other and then having other people die for them and then, like, ultimately killing each other with their dragons. not on topic of new show, but can you see any future spin-offs with Unsullied Origins, Wildlings, White Walkers, or if you had your way, what story would you like to see on TV? That's a good question. It's like 3 of them. Future spin-offs that I would like to see, maybe you're just mentioning those things regardless of like the ones they've officially confirmed, because the White Walker one isn't probably going to be happening anytime soon. I don't know about the Unsullied Origins. They are the greatest warriors in the whole world, but that would kind of be corny. Wildlings, I might could see. That would tie into, like, the Starks and the First Men and, like, the Children of the Forest and maybe, like, the Age of Heroes maybe at some point. Like, maybe they could do something like that. What I would personally like to see is the Doom of Valyria. The Doom of Valyria, right? So there's people that have read the books that say that there's proof that there's dragon riders of different races. Well, this show would be the one show that would definitively show that, right? So dragon riders are known to fuck their brothers and sisters to keep the dragon blood pure. So, in my opinion, most of the Valyrians should all look the same. But this, obviously there's shit in Yee and there's shit in Westeros that was built by dragon riders of all sorts. So it's like, it's kind of like, it'll be interesting to see, for one, how the Valyrians tamed the dragons. For two, what other houses were better. Like, House Targaryen wasn't even that high of a house in Valyria. They were kind of like a lower house. So it'd be interesting to see what the higher-up houses looked like and how many dragons they had. And maybe these dragons looked entirely different than the ones that we see. Because for the most part, the dragons in the Song of Ice and Fire story that we see with Daenerys' dragons and then in the Dance of Dragons, those all came from the dragons that Aegon's family took when they first went over there. So it'd be interesting to see that. What the other dragon houses look like what Valyria looked like, maybe how they tamed the dragons, and then also what happened in the Doom of Valyria, so how it actually got destroyed. There's a very active area of volcanoes known as the 14 Flames, and that's how the Valyrians supposedly first tamed dragons. So it'd be interesting to see that area. We did get to see, I think it's season 5 when Tyrion went there, when he went to go meet up with Daenerys. We saw him and Jorah go past Old Valyria. Remember, that's how Jorah got a disease that turned him into stone. Lord Hunts, can we expect to see Mushroom in the show? I mean, he's clearly one of the biggest figures in the story, so they definitely should put him in. He has to. Don't be afraid to make fun of little people. That's the silliest thing ever. It's a fictional TV series, and they definitely were fools and jesters back in the day. I think it's badass how Tyrion can flip and tumble in the books, but cannot on the TV show. Like when Jon Snow first meets him, did I fucking dog-ear that page? Or not dog-ear, did I bookmark that? When Jon first meets him, Tyrion's like on top of a tower, and then slides and flips down. It's like, Lord Bastard, are you the bastard? It's pretty badass. It's right here. I obviously like comic book art, so yeah. So basically, this part right here, I'll read it for you. The sounds of music and songs spilled through the open windows. They were the last things he wanted to hear. Boy? Is that an animal? A wolf? A dire wolf. What are you doing up there? Why aren't you at the feast? And then Tyrion goes, too hot, too noisy, and I drunk too much wine. I learned long ago that it is considered rude to vomit on your brother. Might have a closer look at your wolf. Then Jon Snow says, can you climb down, or shall I bring a ladder? And then Tyrion goes, oh, bleed that. And then bam, motherfucker does it. Runs down the banister, and then does a flip. Can you see that? That's pretty badass. Book version of Tyrion is so much cooler than live version of Peter Dinklage. Just kidding. You know how silly that would have been to see him tumbling on the on the TV show, though? I think George actually admitted that was like one of his biggest regrets about making Tyrion be able to do that. Suppose he learned how to do it from his uncle. But yeah, they cannot normally do that. I don't know. You guys should look up. Little person does a backflip. Do Do you think the dragon's genders will be revealed? Of course, whichever one of them are said to leave clutches of eggs in certain places. That's how the dragon's genders are revealed. They can change their intersex, whichever one they need to be. I just think that Mushroom will be too similar to Tyrion, where they have a queen fighting for the throne. He's not really similar to Tyrion, though, because Tyrion has a position of power. Tyrion is the hand of the king. Tyrion, honestly brings peace to Westeros. Tyrion is a Lannister, the richest family in the world. Mushroom is a fucking fool. He gets kicked. People shit on him. People poop on him, literally. He has to hide in barrels of flour. He likes to make people laugh. He's not known as being a sulking, drunken dude who's, lusty, right? He's just a court fool who... honestly, I don't even know if he'll have lines of dialogue. He's mostly telling his story at the very end of the story because he's one of the few people that survived it. And he actually lives, longer and goes over into Dorne, in Essos and lives over there for a while. Comes back to Westeros. And, ultimately, he has to be a part of the show. It'll be hard to explain certain scenes. His salacious version of the House of the Dragon is the best version of it, right? So some of the events that he tells happens make for way better TV. So if you're going to have this show, right, he has to be. I don't know. Sir Hunt's a little bit off subject, but what's the deal with the horn that Euron has? No Targaryen has ever used a horn to control their dragons. What do you think? It's a trick. Dragon binder. Targaryens don't have to use horns to control their dragons. They use whips, and obviously their own blood. Euron is going to try to use Victarion to blow the horn so that he's the true master of the horn. So technically Euron will be turned to stone, Victarion will be turned to stone, and Euron thinks he'll be able to get one of Daenerys' dragons. But none of that matters because Euron's going to die in the Battle of Blood outside Old Town. His dumb ass is stupid. He's got a boat that's bloated and it's filled with blood of people that he's sacrificed that believe in him, right? So in the bowels of his ships, he's got several different priests and warlocks or whatever the fuck from all over the world, and they have different religions. And Euron knows that the one true magic in Westeros is that of blood magic. If you can have someone sacrifice themselves and believe in you with all their power, that's what gives you the ability to overcome certain situations, maybe even avoid death, where if other people would have died from injuries, maybe you don't. Maybe you get resurrected, right? So Euron knows this is the one true power in Westeros. So he's got a ship filled with blood of priests and victims that he sacrificed of people who he believes in, or people that believe in him. So he basically tortures them to the point where they can't differentiate between what's real and what's not. That's what he's doing to his brother, Damphair, right now. And eventually they see him as a god. And once they see him as a god, he kills them and collects all their blood in this boat. So what he plans on doing is sacking Old Town, and he's going to summon a kraken by emptying that boat of blood into the water, and he thinks when he summons that kraken that the kraken is going to listen to him. But that's not the fucking case. Kraken's going to kill him. Euron's going to die like a bitch. Was that even your question? I don't know. I think he flipped from at least 15 feet high. Yeah, yeah, right? Tyrion's goddamn fucking tumbling master. I hear my son crying. I might have to cut this live stream short. Could Dany claim it with blood by killing Victarion? What? Like her dragon back? This is taking me all off of the subject, but I tried to answer your question as best I could. Do you think we will see the second battle of Tommenton exactly as it happens in the books? Maybe. Let me think. Second battle of Tumbleton. Is this where Alan or Adam Valerian? It's Alan Oakenfist. Alan. So is that where Adam Valerian shows up? And he's is it where he has to kill the dragon seeds because he wants to prove his loyalty to Rhaenyra? Is that what you're talking about? I can't remember the exact events of that. Does Dany still have braids in her hair? I mean, bells. These questions are not about House of the Dragon or Targaryens of old. Can we get back to that? Let's see if I've missed any. So Richard Thomas says, so do you think the Lords of Westeros grew weak and complacent under Jaehaerys? I don't think that's the thing. So every good leader has to learn how to follow, right? If what you're saying is being weak and complacent means like standing in line behind, like standing behind someone who you know is better equipped and better suited to lead a nation than you are, then sure, if that's what you mean by weak and complacent. I just mean that like Targaryens are actually the best thing for Westeros because they have dragons. Dragons equal destruction, but it's also like when you have multiple dragons, you can kind of keep the realm, for the most part, if you're not fucking warring with your brother who you fucked or whatever, like Targaryens typically do. For the most part, when there's multiple dragons in a Targaryen who's reigned for a long time, and the small folk and high folk agree that he's a badass alike, the dragons kind of just assure the realm that if something were to break out, everybody's gonna fucking die in blood and fire. So it's like mutually assured destruction, right? So I don't think I would call them weak and complacent. I would say that they kind of, did what they needed to. To be honest, I don't really understand the question. I think it's because you asked so long back, and I've talked about so many different things. New Orleans, I'll be there on Wednesday. Nice. Talking about my hat. This is actually my girlfriend's hat. Sounds like a lovely fellow referring to Maegor. Is there a clear depiction of Vhagar's color, like Balerion? Isn't it black? Just dark? Sir Hans, can we talk about the changes that we might see in the show besides the ones we've already seen in the teaser? You can also talk about those as well. That's going to be hard because we haven't even gotten that trailer yet. I don't think there's going to be that many changes. I think the source material was perfect. I see that there's a few threads that are started on the House of the Dragon subreddit about, like, do you think they're going to cut these characters, or do you think they're going to add in a love story between these characters? No, the source material is perfect. They can play within the bounds and not change it at all. It's like, so for example, I'm going to set up a rule right now, right? So I hold my hand up. It's brown, but it could be orange. It could also be like tan, right? That's the rule. So as long as someone's holding up a hand, it has to be one of those three colors. As long as it's one of those three colors, that's the rule that I set. So that's what makes the most sense. That's kind of what George did with this story. It's like, did Daemon survive? Well, years fucking later, during the regency of or during the reign of Aegon III, Nettles was seen with the brown sheep stealer in the woods during one of the progresses, right? So it's like, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Maybe he survived the battle initially, but then died a few days later. So I just feel like because the story is very much set up like that, there doesn't need to be any changes. You can follow along with the source material and make it your own version, right? Because that's kind of like what we're given. We're given 3 different versions of events most of the time, so they get to kind of pick one. And I think in the process of picking one event or one version of the story, that leads them to having to stick with that and follow that. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I think once we see the trailer, it'll be easy to tell what some of the major changes are in the first season. Do you think the dialogue will be top tier for the first seasons of Game of Thrones, even though there's no dialogue source material? No. I'm kind of worried about that. Because we don't have infamous lines from characters to be repeated on this show, maybe that's why they hired 6 writers, to make sure they can get the dialogue down. So I'm obviously worried about it because there's no POV in this for the most part. There's no lines of dialogue, famous conversations that make this show that doesn't necessarily happen in this story. But George is hands-on, very much so hands-on. Ryan Condal's mentioned how he talks with George all the time, so I'm not that worried. When do you think the trailer will come? At this point, I don't fucking know. I guess they literally canceled the convention that was in February. So maybe that's when the trailer will get here. I've been saying for like a month, 2 months now, it makes the most sense to release a release date for the trailer. So everyone will be at that time and date satisfied, satiated. Also, they know that will probably get the trailer more views. More people will see it. If the camera froze, it should unfreeze in a second. It does that, mostly because the software that I'm using. The trailer is most likely going to come out after the GOT fan convention in February, March. I don't know. I thought it would be out before then. I mean, we could at least get a release date for the trailer or a release date for the show. It's like we can figure out one or the other. If we get a release date for the trailer, we know the trailer's coming out at this time. Usually it comes out X amount of months before the show, right? And then we'll be able to tell how much footage, or at least I know I'll be able to tell, like from the footage in the trailer, how much of it is from the first few episodes. And then I'll kind of know how much they've finished. So then that'll give me a good idea of when the show's going to be coming out. At this point, we've not gotten a trailer. We've not gotten a release date. That April date that was like a rumor for a year, and then another YouTuber claimed it as their own, that's probably not going to happen. I don't see April happening. May is even up for grabs. Like, I don't even know if May is going to happen. We haven't gotten a trailer. We haven't gotten a release date. So, I don't know. Honestly, I want them to take their time. We do know it's coming out this year, so honestly, we know we're not going to be waiting more than like maybe 8 months, tops. And we'll have a trailer before that. We'll have multiple teasers. We'll have cast interviews. That's what I'm most excited about. None of these actors are that well known in this show, right? A few of them are, obviously. But when actors start giving interviews, talking about the series, like specifically, it'll be like fucking Jimmy Fallon's like, got the new star of House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel series. That's when they're going to have them on to specifically talk about the show. Usually we get clips. Usually they give us some information that we may not have known. Usually they let some shit slip by accident, by purpose, on purpose or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, who knows? Do you think they will release all the episodes in one day? No, they never. No. Netflix does that, and it's stupid, in my opinion. I wish they had released one episode a week, like The Witcher, so that it gives every time, or shows like The Witcher, they would release one episode a week, so it gives everyone time to sort of build theories and all that stuff. HBO is not going to dump all the episodes at once. They've never done that, never will. I think they're going to stretch out the anticipation as long as they can. Oh, they definitely are. They're doing that. Richard Thomas says, I meant that in the sense of Jaehaerys gave the realm such a long stretch of peace, prosperity, the thought of war became such a distant thought that training and everything else became lax. And eventually the realm wouldn't be as... Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, basically, Jaehaerys reigned for too long. Because every few years when a new Targaryen comes into power, there's war, banners are called, fucking dragons die, or just new rules are established. The kingdom was ready for that. Because Jaehaerys established a rule and a reign the way he did for so long, the realm was not prepared for the Dance of the Dragons. And maybe there would have been more treaties and more of the War of Ravens if there was, if the kingdom had in recent memory more of the bloodshed and the dragons dying that they did when, like, in the past. I hope not in September. That'd be crazy. That's like really close to when the Lord of the Rings show is coming out. Oh, I thought this was pretty cool. Bilbo, Frodo, and my girlfriend all have the same birthday. Y'all know Lord of the Rings, September 22nd. It's like the first day of the fall, right? Do you think Game of Thrones will ever get a sequel? Maybe. Talking about like a season 9 or a set of movies. The Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring has to come out before that will ever happen. So, Germ. Dawn Marie says, I just can't wait to see all the dragons in this new show. I believe I read somewhere there will be 17. Yes, George gave an interview where he mentioned that there are a total of like 20-some dragons that take part in the dance. Is Vhagar Grey Ghost? No. What? Those are two different dragons. I think Daemon will survive just to have the show do something unexpected from the books. I just can't imagine all the fans. I can just imagine all the fans going wild about it. I think so too. Technically, it's not different from the books because they don't necessarily know. Daemon's body was never found. But it is mentioned that Aemon's body was found when they pulled up Vhagar's carcass, like a year or two later. So how would you find one of the people who died on their dragon? And Caraxes pulled himself to the shore. because he was that badass. He's like, I'm not going down to the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to pour myself to the fucking beach. Maybe go for one last flight. Obviously, he doesn't. But Caraxes dies in front of Harrenhal. And Daemon's body's just never found. Obviously, there's queer currents and all that shit. But I think that it's possible Sheep Stealer, motherfucking Nettles, came down and swooped him up off the shore somewhere. Maybe floating in the water because she knew what was going to happen. Maybe she actually is a witch. And this is part of how she knew how to tame the dragon. She's got the blood of the dragon. Maybe she was learning. Maybe she found some books on Dragonstone and she figured out some ways to use blood magic. Maybe she does a blood magic sacrifice in order to keep Daemon around for a little bit longer, right? Maybe Daemon is one of the first fire whites that are brought back. Who knows? This show is going to do something like that because we've got weirwood trees in places where they don't belong. We've got several different versions of Varys on this show. They're going to be more mystical than Varys' counterpart on the TV show, or Varys' like adaptation version on the TV show. These versions, Larys Clubfoot and Mysaria or Misery the White Worm, are going to they're more mystical, right? So Mysaria specifically has like Valyrian blood. She's called the White Worm. It's interesting because a lot of dragons are called worms. Like there's the red worm, right? So fire worms are this primordial type of dragon. But a lot of people think the Valyrians used to mate with another type of creature called a wyvern to actually make fire-breathing flying dragons, because a fire worm is literally a dragon that can't fly, and a wyvern is a dragon that can't breathe fire. So a lot of people think that they took the two of them together, and in that process they like bonded with it, and that's how they're able to bond with dragons. So the first Targaryens might have actually, or the first Valyrians, god damn it, the first Valyrians might have actually warged into their dragons to control them. And that's another thing, relating back to what I said earlier about the Doom of Valyria. If we do get a show like that, we'd see the first versions of these dragons, and they're probably some twisted-looking, fucked-up creatures, right? Maybe we'll get some versions that look like some of Maegor's twisted, unborn children, right? Maybe. The death of Rhaenys is going to be it's going to fuck me up. Rhaenys dies. That's when Aegon gets wounded. To be honest, I think I'm going to be more fucked up from the kids' deaths. Like a lot of the Targaryen youths, the way they die. Like blood and cheese, that shit's going to fuck me up. Luke, like the way he dies, that's fucked up, right? I don't know. All the deaths are going to fuck me up. So it's possible that Cold Hands is the rogue prince. Yes, totally. Daemon goes north of the wall, works for Bloodraven, right? The guy who's born after him, he just kind of chills. Guillermo Romero says, "What's up, bro? Getting late. What's up, my dude? Do you think if the show does well, we will have a show about the Blackfire rebellions in the future?" We're already getting dunk and egg. So yes. Pipeweed celebration. All right, so I think I covered everything. We're right at an hour. I'm going to get out of here to make this easier and more manageable for people that want to watch afterwards. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Everybody that's watching right now, please do me a favor and slap a like on this video. Like goals as many as possible. If you enjoy these types of videos, one of the things that you can do to help combat YouTube randomly demonetizing these is by going to go check out my patreon.com or my Patreon over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. For instance, like the last live stream that I did, I mentioned my opinion on something and I said a few curse words, and that live stream got demonetized. So like it's hard to explain because YouTube doesn't exactly tell you. So these are my patrons right here. Sorry, do a bad job of giving them the shout outs. YouTube doesn't exactly tell you why videos are demonetized for the most part. So because of that, I kind of have to figure it out. And I think it had something to do with like calling Peter Dinklage a midget. I just did it again, so I'm pretty sure it's got demonetized. But that doesn't matter. It was fun talking to you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. My name's Mark. Super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. And a super special shout out to you for watching this video. Thank you. Goodbye.